Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Thursday, November 20th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Rice on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words in the upper left-hand corner that say Start Here, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 21 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download from that page a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one where people have been stepped through the worksheet process. If you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on it, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, we'd greatly appreciate you doing so. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@yagain.org. And if we get a question or a comment from you, we'll address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred, so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. The other option is, if you're available weekdays from 11 to noon Central Time, you can join us live. You can go to zoom.us, open up a window, and type in the meeting ID number 853-2357-4173. That's 853-2357-4173. And if you call in on one of the many phone numbers they have, when you call in, you'll be muted automatically, and you can toggle in and out of mute by hitting *6 on your phone. And we greatly appreciate it whenever anybody lets us know, whether it's through an email question or comment or testimonial or it's live, how these things are landing for you, because that makes it so much easier for us to live into our intention with this work. The intention is to be a service, and if you'll let us know how we can be of better service to you, we will be grateful. So, yesterday we finished reading through the entire book by Guy Finley and Dr. Ellen Dickstein, titled The Book of One, One Love, One Life, One Journey. And if you search for it, you might be able to come up with an uplifting, award-winning video about the book. The Book of One, Love, Life, Journey. They've actually got a QR code on the back of the book that that might take me to a place where I could actually get the actual address. We'll see what happens if this recognizes the QR code. onejourney.net. ONEJOURNEY.net. If you go there, there's a 3 or 4 minute video, and it's a whole website about all of these great quotes from throughout history. So that was a wrap for the Guy Finley book, and we're wide open to suggestions about where to go from here. I have had some interviews recently with people that it's unfolding into a theme of spirituality as a tool for mental health. And the most recent book I'm reading in preparation for an interview in a couple of weeks is titled Spiritism and Mental Health. Practices from, let's see, what is the subtitle? Practices from Spiritist centers and Spiritist psychiatric hospitals. It's written by Emma Bragdon, Bragdon, James Lake, and 1 or 2 others. And the point is that Spiritism, I hadn't heard of it prior to getting an introduction to Emma, but there's a person by the name of Kardec, Kardec, and he's written a series of books. Allan, Allan, Kardec, Kardec, and his book, The Spirits Book, written in 1857, it presents the philosophy based on the existence, manifestations, and teachings of the Spiritists. So, Spiritists, the question often arises, why do they call it Spiritism and not spiritualism? So, spiritualism would be the more common term. And back in Allan Kardec's time, those who were spiritualists believed it was possible to communicate with discarnate spirits, but they didn't categorically embrace reincarnation or notion of spiritual evolution. And Spiritism does include those things. Spiritists believe that life is a continuum alternating between life in a body and life as a discarnate, ever progressing toward a spiritual destination, a point of identification as pure love, as compassion and wisdom. So I hope you can see the overlap, why this would be something I would be bringing here. Dr. Michael Rice and his teachings from the ancient Khabour's manuscript and the Course in Miracles, my work with the Way of Mastery, these things are all talking about how your true nature is this energy of creation. Some would call it love. That it is a unique thing to humans or the spiritual being to be able to generate compassion and tap into wisdom. And what Emma Bragdon says in her book is that Kardec's books advocate a high degree of discipline and perseverance in life in order to effect personal transformation and transcend the selfish desires of the lower self. Thus, Spiritists take on a rigorously demanding life path. The precepts also advocate communicating with highly evolved spirits for the purposes of healing and the study of deeper truths, rather than communicating with spirits who are less evolved for the sake of, say, amusement or curiosity or fascination with phenomenon. Thus, spiritists are attending not only to the regulation of their own behavior, their own thoughts and will, but they're doing what they can to assist spirits to evolve to higher levels. Knowledge of the spiritual worlds acquired through study is regarded as essential in this task. Spiritists believe that spiritual healing and the gifts of mediumship originate with God, and they are given freely to mankind. They believe that what is received for free must be given for free. Therefore, all Spiritist healing is without charge or even, quote, a suggested donation, close quotes. Furthermore, Spiritists believe that when a spiritual healer or medium charges money for their services, the healer opens the door to less evolved spirits who downgrade the spiritual work and possibly damage the healer or the medium by causing addiction or mental or physical disease. With this in mind, it's interesting to note that the downfall of the two sisters, Kate and Maggie Fox, back in the 1800s, who were world-renowned mediums, but their downfall, that he says, was tied to becoming victims of alcoholism after they made a commercial venture of their ability to be mediums. So they started charging money for their services. So, if you combine this with the research from Lisa Miller's book, which the title of which is The Awakened Brain, The New Science of Spirituality, and Our Quest for an Inspired Life. When you combine these things, you start seeing this, I start seeing anyway, powerful overlap. And, I talk about these things kind of circularly, so I'm hoping that the repetition brings these things up in a way that helps you or others integrate connections between these various things. So, for instance, I had a new patient in my office yesterday, and in the first session, my brain was basically exploding with options of things I want to put in front of them and trying to weed out which would be the most useful. So things like that we've talked and discussed here on the internet show over the years. The very short and concise book by Micah Salaberios titled The Art of Nonviolent Communication, which if you get it as an Audible book is only $4 or $5. So, don't buy it with a credit from Audible because your credits cost $14 or $15. This beautiful template for creating communications that are specific and they're focused and they're direct, so that it is clear to everyone what your position is and what you might be asking for, without threat or intimidation, without manipulation, without guilt tripping, just a statement of, here's how things appeared to me, here's what I made them mean, here are the emotions that I generated in response to it, here's how in this situation it's requiring me to make change to deal with what's happened. And then, if necessary, if appropriate, then I might put in a request. But it's a simple request, and I'll be perfectly okay whether the request is adhered to or not, and it is not a demand disguised as a request, and it is not a manipulation disguised as a request. So that's a powerful book that combines some of the, or a very short book, that combines some of the powerful dynamics of Dr. Michael Rice's responsibility communication tool and puts it in a template or a format that you can listen to. It only takes about an hour to listen to it, and you can listen to it over and over again until you start to develop what Michael Rice would call the brain cells, or you start to install within your own thought process a template for analyzing a situation, deciding what you would like to communicate, and then hopefully effectively communicating that to someone else. The other thing is to bring that to bear with what Shirzad Chamine talks about in his book, which he calls, the book is titled Positive Intelligence, and he talks about positive intelligence reps, exercises you can do. And each time you do the exercise for 10 or 15 seconds, you strengthen your capacity to tap into your sage, your wise, your inspired, your creative intuition, and turns the volume down on the negative voices in your head, what he calls the saboteurs, the judge, the controller, the low self-esteem person, etc., the victim. Well, this simple little exercise is so powerful because it just brings mindfulness and somatic work together, that I just, for 10 or 15 seconds, vividly focus on a physical sensation that I'm aware of in the moment. So I take my mind away from the spinning and the negative thoughts that might be called, the saboteurs, offering me a negative assessment of what's happening in life, and I shift it over to the sensations around my left upper chest, where there's a little bundle of trigger points or lymph nodes here. And sometimes when I go and I rub in this area, it's called the sore spot in the original EFT work, just touching the area resonates a deeper pain. Well, today, as I touch that, there's no such bundle there. There's no such trigger point. But I've just spent 10 or 15 seconds just focusing on that area. I can do the same with the EFT tapping or the shortcut of the finger rubbing. I can just specifically focus my attention on the sensations of one finger wrapping around another. Or about, if I choose to do the EFT tapping, I can just gently tap and focus on the physical sensation of my finger touching my eyebrow. And if I'm doing that with a calming breath, I've done what Shirzad Chamine calls a positive intelligence quotient rep, a repetition, like a gym workout, like lifting curls weights or doing bench presses. And what he recommends is, and he has solid research that indicates that if people will start trying to get 100 reps in per day of this 10-second focus on just what's going on in the physical body in the moment, that you strengthen that capacity of your mind to tap into wisdom and insight, creativity, and you turn down the volume on the negative thoughts and the trauma energies and the voices that get generated from those negatively held beliefs and energies. The overlap between what Shirzad Chamine and his research indicates happens for people who will bring themselves back into themselves many, many times throughout the day. In other words, without directly saying it, Shirzad Chamine has developed a way to help people develop a mindfulness practice that becomes, if not top priority, their second priority, all throughout the day, every day. And in that process, he's ushering people into an experience of managing their own thoughts and emotions, and managing them in a way of observing so that one can see what isn't so productive, right? My negative thought patterns that relate to judging me as not being smart enough, or judging me as not being perseverant enough, or hardworking enough, or dedicated enough. I was just reading from the book where in the the plan that's laid out in Kardec's books for Spiritists, they're really required to study, to focus, to pay attention to regulating their own behavior, their own thoughts, and their own will. And it's a rigorous practice. They require a high degree of discipline and perseverance in all arenas of their lives. That's what they require of themselves. It's not somebody from the outside requiring it. It's just the recognition from people who've done this work is that, yeah, you can get to a certain point if you just stumble along and occasionally read a book, or occasionally you go to a gong bath or some other kind of sound healing thing, and you occasionally go to your favorite church or mosque or temple. You can get a certain level of improvement in life, or movement from just the strict focus on the physical. But what they're talking about here with the Spiritism is, if you really want to get good at this, you want to take yourself to the next level, if you want to stay more in that loving mindset, in this awake, aware mindset, you've got to be rigorous in your practice. And Lisa Miller, in her book, The Awakened Brain, talks about two different types of awareness: an acquiring awareness and an observing awareness. And they're both useful, and they both have their place. So it's a matter of taking a look at, like the Way of Mastery will talk about, please don't try to dismantle your ego. Please don't attack your ego, and don't beat yourself up for having an ego. Why? Well, because as the book The Mirror Theory, Betsy says, I hate ego, Charlie, and Charlie's the teacher here and Betsy's the student. And she rails it, I hate the ego. And then Charlie says to her, well, then ego has won. And Betsy says, what are you talking about? I just told you I hate ego. I would kill it, I would dismantle it at every turn. And Charlie says, well, then ego wins, because ego doesn't care what you hate as long as you hate. It doesn't matter who or what you're hating. It's the energy of hate that's destructive, that's based in a lie, that's an echo of the past, that if you keep pouring your mind energy in it today, you're just ruining your life experience today. Nothing good comes from hating. So in the Way of Mastery, they talk about, here's a set of exercises that if you are willing to engage them, you will change your relationship to your ego. And it won't be you dismantling ego, it will be you understanding the role of ego and the beneficial nature of it as a very limited tool. But it's a tool that helps you navigate through life. Well, Lisa Miller's book talks about this. It talks about slightly different words, but exactly the same observation. It's really a good thing to have awareness and to use your awareness to try to acquire things that you feel you want or need. And yet there's another type of awareness that has nothing to do with acquiring anything. It just has to do with being present with things, awake and aware, and learning from things rather than acquiring things. And if you're able to see the powerful similarities between all of these bodies of work or schools of thought and what Dr. Michael Rice is presenting in the Reality Management Worksheet and the targeted journaling that he calls the Mind Shifter tool, and what we support it with in terms of the mental short version of the Reality Management Worksheet that's available on mindshiftersacademy.org website on the educational materials page. And when we support it with the EFT tapping, and we support it with a breath work that's specifically designed to bring a person into the parasympathetic rest and digest response. If you're willing to take a look at this, your life in terms of these the two-prong approach. One is to reconnect yourself to the awareness of your true nature. As Suzanne Roberts says, your infinite connection to a wireless power source. If you can become aware of that and strengthen your awareness of that, that awareness can help you dismantle some of the negativity. And the second prong of the approach is that I take full responsibility for any negative emotions and thoughts I have, and I engage tools like the reality management worksheet or the EFT tapping or the breath work or Diederik Wolzak's worksheet or Byron Katie's The Work series of questions and turnarounds, or the Ho'oponopono active practice work for cleaning up any negativity from my own mind-body energy system. If I'll engage in those tools, the rest of it flows, because I'll tap into that wireless energy source. Right? I'll become more consciously aware moment to moment of my interconnection and interdependence with everyone and everything. And when I'm in that space, it simply isn't possible for me to do something that's hurtful to myself or someone else. And that's when you see life, the giving and receiving cycle, the breath of life, the flow. You see it animating everything about your experience more vividly. This is what happens when people have what they call these spiritual awakenings. They get the direct experience of their true nature interacting with the true nature of the energy fields around them, and it just, every new heartbeat goes beyond words. So, we're about the halfway mark. We have plenty of time for comments, questions, answers. How is this landing for you? One of the things that draws me to the work from Emma Bragdon and the Spiritists is that they talk about Kardec and his work in his books. He talks about this philosophy as a practical Christianity, but without rituals, without priesthood and without churches, and without living in fear of hell and damnation. Because Spiritists, the way Kardec outlined it, they believe in a loving God, a supreme intelligent force, with whom all people may have direct communication. Now, this is a missing piece in every religion. It's been a while since I've mentioned it, but in the book club group study, whatever you want to call it, I did for 4.5 years with a group of people that were Christian Scientists. One of the books was the book about the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. And there's a scroll that's been found that's attributed to Mary Magdalene, and it's only a partial scroll. Parts of it are missing. But from the parts that are there and that they can translate, there are 3 things that Mary Magdalene tells the other disciples that Yeshua had shared with her, because the story goes that she was the most loved of the disciples. She had this close relationship with Yeshua. And so after Yeshua was gone, they were gathered together and fearful about people might come after them, and they were looking at things. And the other disciples asked Mary Magdalene, tell us, what were these special teachings? What would our teacher teach you that he wouldn't teach us? And so she lists 3 things that are visible in the parts of the scroll that haven't been destroyed. Those 3 things are, number 1, the kingdom of heaven is within you. It's not outside of you, it's not up in the sky, it's not down in the water, it's not off in a tree because birds would be there first or fish would be there first, etc. So that's something that right there moves us away from any kind of a formalized religion where I would need a priest or a nun or a guru or a shaman to be an intermediary between me and the kingdom of heaven or this peace within, or the community of love, as the ancient Aramaics would call it. The second point that she makes in that gospel, what is available from that document, that scroll, is that there's no such thing as sin the way we talk about it. It's not a moral issue. That you aren't damaged or broken or wrong or bad, and what you do in this life is more of a learning, and what we call sin is more like, just being off the mark. It's an energy that doesn't belong there. Take another shot, realign your aim, etc. And the third piece that's in that book, the scroll from the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, was don't make any laws beyond what I've already given you. And so if you take those 3 teachings from Yeshua, and you keep them top of mind, you can't create a religion. You can't say, I'm closer to God than you are, or that person's closer to God than I am, and I need to go to them to pray for me and, intercede with God for me. And you can't motivate people by fear if all there is love, and you're not going to go to hell and be damned forever. And that same observation or philosophy is in the Spiritist work, which is another thing that draws me to it. So, wide open for comments, questions. Is this making sense?
Okay. Tim.
Come on, Susan Bingham. Welcome.
I just had another one of those discussions with my grandson, Charlie, who is avoiding going home for Thanksgiving except for a few days. He's getting off school tomorrow after a couple of classes, then he's free. And he has planned 2 different trips, not home. And he said, don't tell my dad this, but I'm afraid to go home. His father, my son Jonathan, is a trigger for him and doesn't seem to go away from being a trigger. But one of the things Charlie focuses on, as you know, I've talked about this before, is my son has not taken Jesus Christ as the only way to get to heaven. In other words, in my mind, this is a fear-based approach. And when you said Mary Magdalene's 3 things, it just fits there. And I wish I could find them, but Michael Rice suggested a couple of things I could say to Charlie, and they're somewhere around here, but I didn't have them on hand. What I did, though, is, he's telling me that he's anxious about going home because he's going to want to tell his dad that he's really got to get himself in shape and put Jesus first. He says, my dad cares about his invention that he's doing, and he cares about money, and I'm in a position to arguing with Charlie, and I'm just hearing you talk about this, especially the third thing.
Did you just say that you're in a position to argue with Charlie?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, he thinks, I did a lot of taking care of him when he was a little boy, and we had a wonderful time together. So he thinks of me as automatically, there should be no question that I get to heaven. But he's afraid, since I don't run around saying Jesus is the only way, because I don't think that's true. He's worried about my soul too. So we get into these little push and pull, and usually I just say, oh, wow, you're getting so much help for your anxiety by doing this religious work that you're doing. And Jesus is helping you a lot and helping you heal from this. That's so great. And I try to stay on that side of it. But I felt I went into resistance and fear myself, talking to him, wanting to defuse so that he would want to go home with his dad. I guess I'm just giving you a report. I don't even know how to.
Well, I'd be happy to support you in this work to recognize this codependent urge that's still there, right? That you want to fix him.
Yeah.
And just, start to welcome it like an old friend. Oh, there's that energy that, has me on the edge of panic and thinking that I have to be responsible for my grandson's emotions or my son's relationship with his son, or however you want to look at it, and just chuckle at it, take a step back, and then use some tools to actively work on what might be driving it within you, dismantling the inadequate thoughts or feelings you have or insecurities you have. Dismantle them with the use of the tools that work best for you, whether it's the reality management worksheet or the tapping or the breathing or the mind shifter tool. And just keep coming back to the use of tools to dismantle those old patterns. What patterns? Right now we're talking about the pattern of this urge within you to fix people, to change or fix a relationship or a person who's experiencing an intense emotion, and to just keep waking yourself up to the realization that that's not needed. The world doesn't need you to fix it. Most people in most situations don't need you from the outside to tell them how to live their life or to make their life choices for them. So that's where I think you'd find the most benefit in your own work. I know you hate hearing that because that's got no focus on your son or your grandson or getting them to change anything, and that is really a miserable bit of advice I just gave you. I apologize. Let me retract it.
That was a good reverse recording thing you did.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you're right. Yeah, you're right. So, yeah, I found the little things. I had written them down in a note thing on my phone. Michael said, these are things I could say to Charlie, and I can see why they wouldn't fix either. Michael said, the Aramaic says Jesus is not the only begotten Son, but the first begotten Son. That might help. Well, I don't think so. Second one, Jesus said, the things I do, you can do. Well, I'm not sure what Charlie would do with that. And then Jesus said, why call me good and perfect? Only God is good. That's a good thing. But still, all of these are a way of, and one more, in Jesus' culture, a man, this is great, a man and his son are one in that culture. A son is considered the same as his father in that culture. I don't know where that came from or how Michael knows that. That's a really interesting thing. I don't think anything I could say would cut it.
That's the point. What are you trying to do with what you say? When you say it won't cut it, how would you know if it cuts it? Because you're looking for a certain outcome, right? You're clinging to, you're pouring your mind energy into wanting a goal. Cancel the goal and get asked to be shown what's the driving force inside you that's uncomfortable, that's unhappy, that's feeling inadequate or feeling pressured. That's your work, to see that and release it. when you see
God.
that and release it, then you're going to show up very differently, energetically, in the space with your son and your grandson, etc.
Yeah, you know, I've never thought of that, but I know where the trigger comes from. You just said something and I don't remember exactly what, but I was estranged for so long from my daughter, and I guess I'm picturing that there's an estrangement here, and there isn't. It's a different kind of sparring they're doing. It isn't that at all. So that's part of it. So good.
So you have still some unresolved energies from the times that you were estranged from your daughter?
I guess so.
Is that what I was hearing you saying?
Yeah, I guess that's one reason I'm so anxious about Charlie and his father. I've said things to Charlie like, your father adores you. If you get into a fight, it doesn't mean he doesn't adore you. You're assuming he doesn't adore you. He does. I know. Anyway, I'm arguing for the connection between the two of them and arguing out of fear that it might be broken. That's what I mean about the estrangement thing with my daughter. So.
Yeah, and so, but you're pointing it out, and so it could be very beneficial for you to do some either journaling or worksheets on that estrangement with your daughter. However long it happened, who you thought was at fault, how it got resolved, whether or not you actually feel like the negative effects of it have been completely resolved or they're still in process. The more work you do on that, the more free you'll become of those influences.
Yeah. So I had another question, and that is the use of those words, sympathetic dominance. Those are not intuitively good words to me. Sympathetic sounds soft and loving and stuff. That isn't what that's talking about. And are those true scientific terms?
Well, but they're just terms. They're just made up terms. When you say
true
scientific terms, but all scientific terms are just made up. So they talk about the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, and the sympathetic nervous system drives fight or flight, and the parasympathetic drives rest and digest. But it's not like on off. It's not like there's a continuum. There's certain functions in each of these parts of our autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. There are parts of them that are both working at the same time. They're just not working at extremes at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? And if one of them goes to an extreme, the other one is prevented from having its functioning.
Until you really get a gut feeling, it's like religion. If you were raised in a culture, it's deep in your bones. Even if you never went to church, it's in the culture. It's like the ocean that a fish swims in. When you get a word like that, it's not in the system. Probably people get it into their systems and use it and feel it.
Well, they just practice it, right?
Yeah.
It becomes familiar only with practice.
Well, yeah, and it's like carbon-based memory and all those things too. Ruka Dukuja, all those cultural things from another culture coming in, and they sit outside until they're in somehow. Anyway, I'm getting off the track. Well, thanks for talking about that.
Well, you're welcome. The bottom line is, again, the more I do, I had a pair of young parents in my office, and they're dealing with a preteen that's having serious problems, and so they did not like the fact that what I was trying to talk to them about to begin all of the work is their energies, their emotions, their response when their son or daughter has a tantrum, and they really want a way to fix their son or daughter.
Yeah.
And there's a whole series of things that are probably going to be needed in that regard. And yet, still, the first thing to do is manage their own energies.
Yep.
Find the way to be able to manage their own energies. And then whatever they do comes through cleaner. It comes through from that loving, open space. It comes through without all of the pressure of, a manipulation or a demand. It's just, it allows us to be with people more fully.
Yeah.
But just notice what happens in your energy when you're with your grandson and you start having these thoughts that you're not saying it quite right, and that if you only said the right thing, then he would change this, and then he'd be connected with his dad. Just notice that pressure and energy in you.
Yeah.
And train yourself to turn back in on that rather than let it drive your behavior.
Yeah. That's good.
We talked about a thing, I've talked about a variety of things over the years where I would get stuck in something and then I'd realize I was stuck in my thinking, and so I'd start doing worksheets on it. And we've talked about how insidious the thought process can be. I've given examples of I'd be driving to work and I'd be thinking about, here's a great worksheet. I'll do a worksheet on that when I get to work. And 7 minutes later, I'm at the office and lay out my worksheets and can't remember the topic. My mind is actively hiding it from me.
Yeah.
Other times, I have a disruption in a serious relationship and I'd start doing worksheets and I'd feel like I'd gotten some shift. And the next thing you know, I wake up 3 or 4 days later and realize I've had this cycle of negative thoughts bubbling up and getting pushed down and bubbling up. So then if I let myself just ignore that, what has happened for me historically is I move back into the negative behaviors that confound me and or drive wedges between me and the people in those relationships. If I recognize, wait a minute, here's another negative thought. Let's put some of these negative thoughts on worksheets. And I keep cycling through that for a few days or sometimes a few weeks in the more stubborn situations. Eventually, because I just keep asking to be shown, eventually I see how I'm the one creating the negative emotional state. It is truly not being created by the people around me. And the evidence, the acid test there is when I do enough worksheets that energy shifts in me and nothing has changed in the outside situation.
Yeah.
Whether it's a relationship or it's the weather or it's how much money's in the bank account, that's the acid test for me.
That's true. And in the case of Charlie, I don't think I've done one wake-up sheet on him. Dun-dun-dun.
How about that?
Yeah.
That's a pretty powerful recognition.
Oh, Charles.
Say what?
I was talking to him just then. Oh, Charles. Yeah. We had a vestry meeting the other night, and our rector starts the meeting by asking a question. He says, what do you want to do? Do you have a dream? And it was very hard for people to answer it. And finally he said, I asked this question of the youth group kids. One of the things I've noticed in my years of being a priest is the kids aren't dreaming. They're just not dreaming into the future. One of them said, I want to make a lot of money fast so that he can be comfortable and safe, probably. But he said they just aren't dreaming. And I'm thinking this might have something to do with everything that's going on now. Is that always been the case? He said for him, it's not. When he's asked a youth group about that, they say, oh, I want to go out to ride horses on a ranch and raise horses, or, they'll have these huge dreams. not one of them piped up with dreams. I know I'm off the subject a little bit. Probably totally off. But
how did you get there is my question.
How did I get there from?
You had just had a recognition
Charlie.
that you had not done a single worksheet on Charlie.
I don't know, Tim.
And then you said, oh, Charles, and then something, you launched into a priest who has noticed that kids don't dream. I didn't make that transition with you.
I didn't make it either. It was a cold jump.
Let's not talk about Charlie and worksheets anymore. Okay. We could just say that.
Okay. Touche. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I got to hand it to you. It came right after I told a story about how my unconscious mind was blocking me from remembering the worksheets that I wanted to do. So here comes your unconscious mind. Let's talk about a priest who's noticed that kids don't dream. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Meanwhile, here's Susan and Charlie locked in the I'm going to save him dynamic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So just take a breath. Do one of those PQ reps right now. Just take a breath and get centered in your body and notice. What do you feel? Are you feeling some thoughts about shame or energies of shame? Is your face getting flushed when you recognize all this talk about how to do what with Charlie, and I haven't done a single worksheet on it? Just notice what you feel physically, not the thoughts about it. How's the temperature of the air on your face? Are you standing up? Are your feet on the floor? Are you seated? Is your back against the chair? Just focus on some very specific physical sensations with a calming breath or two for 5 or 10 or 15 seconds, and watch what happens.
Sheepish.
You're feeling sheepish. Where do you feel that physically? What's the sensation like in the body? Is it more in the face? Is it in the head? Is it in the throat, neck, chest?
It's like hands? The whole, I'm glad we're not in the same room feeling.
Because
I don't want to have anybody looking at me.
What's the sensation? Okay, right. But what's the physical sensation?
Shame, embarrassment. Here I'm teaching tools and using tools and bragging about how I use the tools.
And drop the words for a minute and come back to sensation. Now, this is a bunch of thoughts about how you're doing it wrong, but put the thoughts aside for a minute and take a breath. You feel shame, or you feel hot, you feel tingly, you feel numb, you feel tight or tense.
Tight.
Tightness where?
Chest.
Now you got it. Just breathe into that. Two or three nice relaxing breaths where you just feel the feelings. You don't try to label them. You don't try to understand them. You don't try to make connections intellectually. You just notice the sensation.
I feel as if I'm failing him.
That's thoughts.
That's a thought.
Right? So just let that go, drift, and then just shift back to what's the sensation in the chest? What's that tightness? Is it large or small? Is there a color associated with it? You just said the word pressure. Is it pressure from the outside in or the inside out? If it's from the inside out, is it pressure in every direction or specifically toward the front or to the left or to the right or top or bottom?
No, it's tight in there. It's like a fist in my chest.
Okay. Just breathe into that and get as clear as you can about any aspect of it, any detail of it that you can be aware of. And then just take another relaxing breath or two and just now then scan your body and notice how you feel. And notice what happens in the sensation if you don't race off into thoughts about it, but you just sit in the feeling and breathe through it. Notice what happens.
Not much is happening. It's loosening a little bit, but it's still there. I know we're running out of time, too. That might be nice.
What might be nice?
We're running out of time.
Well, we'll be happy to just let you off the hook anytime you're so inclined. I thank you for the call and the comments and the example. And that, right here at the end, a really good example of how our mind wants to run in with thoughts, and it'll disrupt that new skill we're trying to learn. What's the new skill? To slow down and turn the focus inside with observation rather than analysis.
Yeah.
And so in this case, my intellect, my conscious logical mind is best used as the tool to just identify for me when I've moved back into analysis and away from observation. And then I just take a breath and move back to observation. I let the analysis go. So I will remind us all that we have you're very welcome and deserving. I'll remind us all we have a support group tonight, 6:30 to 9 p.m. Central Time. All the information you would need to join us is available on the mindshiftersacademy.org website. I'll remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. And please try to remember, every single time in my life things did not work out the way I think they should, they have always worked out better than I ever thought they could. Blessings.